8 Sales Shot. If this is your first time joining us, you have found some fun. This is a super tip-rich, fast-paced, fun session where we share best practices. Today, we're talking about onboarding and how do we do it faster? Because that's the goal, right? How do we get reps at and beating quota faster? And I'm joined by a surprise special guest who we will introduce in just a moment. So come on in, open up your chats, please, so we can have some fun today. And we're going to get this party started in chat by asking you to please enter in the city you're in and your superhero name, which of course is your favorite color and your favorite animal, right? So I would be the aqua dog, which is really embarrassing. And I should have thought of that before I just said it off the top of my head, but that's where we're at. So tell me where you're at and your superhero name. Welcome, Britain, St. Petersburg, Clarksville, the blue dog. Alicia, blue dogs are big in my house. If you've got kids, everybody knows that, kids always have their special stuffy, that whoopee, for anybody who was a Mr. Mom fan back in the 80s. And in my house, it's a blue dog. So as every mom does, I went and bought 4 more blue dogs just in case, right? And my kid was on to me in a second. We know who the original. So there's an OG, and then there's like 6 other blue dogs in the house. Bluey, hi Tara, welcome. Welcome. All right, you guys, let me introduce our fabulous guest speaker today, John Utter. John is joining us from Globalization Partners. And every time we've interacted, John, I've walked away going, this guy knows his stuff. And the last time we were talking was onboarding. So how long have you been running onboarding programs, et cetera?
Onboarding for too many years to declare without giving my age away. And but I've been a Globalization Partner since a month before we got sent home for the pandemic. Really?
That's when you started? I didn't know that.
Literally a month before. So literally started at SKO was my first day. Flew across to San Diego, got handed my laptop. 3 weeks later, got sent home, and then a couple of days after that said, John, we still plan on hiring 100 salespeople this year. What do you got?
And by the way, yes, it's all virtual.
Yep.
I love it. So super trial by fire. I can't wait to hear what tips you're going to share with us. Folks, thank you, first of all, to Outreach, who sponsors these for us and makes it possible. We love everything that they do. And if you haven't seen one of these before, we're going to ask that you check out the website and come on back. So these happen monthly. They're always 30 minutes or less, super fast-paced and tip-rich, free. We do rep training topics, manager training topics. This is the first time we've done one really for leaders and enablement folks, because onboarding is a big deal to do right. And John, when I was a training director back in my corporate days, this was my whale. Like, I loved it. It was all about, how do I get reps to stay longer? How do I get them successful sooner? How do we shorten that ramp time? That was the big whale for me. Is this your favorite part of the job too?
100%. And it's always a case of raise the bar, or shorten the length, shorten the length.
Yes, 100%. 100%. By the way, Green Goddess, Jen, John and I were just talking about you and how much we love you. So thank you very much for being here. This is great. Here we go. Tip number 1, raise the bar, shorten the length for your new reps. Boom. Change your goal, folks. We've got to reduce the fire hose when it comes to onboarding. Our job isn't to train them to do their entire job, right? Let's try shooting for sales confidence instead. What I'm talking about here is helping them see, just carve out the first 90 days on the job. They probably won't be processing a return, right? Could we cut that out of the onboarding training? What they probably will be doing is leaving a lot of voicemails, right? Maybe updating contact records in the LMS. But the point is, it's more intimidating when reps leave knowing everything they don't know. It builds more confidence when we reduce that pool, help them feel like this is their whole job and they're nailing it, right? We want them walking out feeling like they're ready to tackle the world. And we do that by reducing the number of topics trained. John, what do you think about this?
Agreed, 100%. I mean, small bite-sized chunks, crawl, walk, run is a progression. The only thing that I would add to this is have your syllabus completely laid out so they know what to expect, exactly when, and they know if they're on track, off track, and they become more self-managing at that point.
I love that. Self-management is the key, and you'll see that in an upcoming tip. I used to draw this chart all the time called just-in-time training, right? So the point is, the longer you're here, the less training you're doing, but it never goes down to zero. And that syllabus helps set the expectation. Hey, this is your onboarding, but we ain't done. We're going to come back and teach you more. In the meantime, this is all you got to know. So carve out 3/4 of the process stuff. Carve out 3/4 of the product stuff. They're not going to be overcoming clients, competitors. They're not going to be overcoming objections. They're not processing returns, right? Carve out half of the sales stuff and just get them really, really confident and excited to go get on the phones and talk to customers. All right, next, got a little extra tip, an extra shot here. The key to this working is making sure that learning isn't something you did, it's something you do. If all you've got going on in your organization is onboarding, it might be why you're trying to jam 5 pounds of rice into a 4-pound bag, as my friend Matt Smith says, right? So it's critical for just-in-time training that there is an opportunity down the road. Cool? So John, maybe you can give us a benchmark here, right? If onboarding is full-time training, when somebody is now into their run phase, or maybe let's call it the walk phase, how much training is the right amount?
It's really hard to say, and a lot of it depends on the individual, but you need to make resources available for all of those levels of adoption. So some of it's more of a deep dive refresher, some of it's a very quick hit video or cheat sheet or whatever that is. But as far as this goes, the statement that you have up on the screen right now, Lauren, I couldn't agree more. Because a lot of times as trainers, enablers, where it's like, I call it the Charlie Brown teacher syndrome, get up in front of the room and wah, wah, wah kind of thing. And, the big challenge with virtual is to get them to do it. So it's not about talking about doing it, it's doing it. That's the big.
Hallelujah. Yeah, hallelujah. That's perfect. Perfect. Thank you for that. All right. Here's the next big tip. There are 6 critical components to an onboarding plan. And I'll tell you something, when I used to spend a lot of time assessing new hire training programs earlier in my career, and 9 out of 10 programs were killing it on 2 of the 6 and had great big gaps in the other 4. So number 1, product, and number 2, systems. You probably are already doing this, and quite possibly a little too much. Sorry to say, okay? I'm going to go through, let's do a tip on each one of them as we go through, right? Because we could talk for 30 minutes on each one of these 6 areas, right? So John, my top tip on product training is quit telling me the freaking history of the product, right? These are salespeople, folks. Tell me how to sell it. I want to know, like I used to create something called a pop sheet, the product one-pager. Tell me what awards it's won. Tell me what problems it solves. Tell me the benefits and tell me the questions to ask a customer to uncover the need for it. What's your top tip on product?
Yeah, and emphasis on benefits, not on features, because we get we start upchucking on features, and it's like, what does that mean to them? And again, it's all about what it does for them, and it's all about this is the benefit of that feature.
If you tune in to our sales shots or any Factor 8 training regularly, SWIFT is not a new term to you. SWIFT stands for, so what's in it for them? And SWIFT is your shortcut from a feature to a benefit. Unfortunately, most people get stalled out around a function. This is my widget and this is what it does. And we think that that's the benefit, and it's not. You've got a benefit when you can answer. So what does it do for them? How does it impact saving them money, time, reputation, quality of life, freedom for risk, or some sort of power and control? Go to our sales shot page that Amy put in chat if you want to see more on that, because It is a shortcut, and we've got a 30-minute quick hit session on that. All right. What's your favorite tip on systems training, John?
You've got it right here. So, so much of the onboarding, it's not a sales class. It's a resource class. Where do you find your resources? How do you do it quickly? And one tip that I can offer as far as like, doing this virtually is the fact that, we do a lot of screen recording now. So, so not just in terms of, what you see and you see the person, but record your screen and do a certain step in a certain system. And it's great because you can see if it took them 10 seconds or if it took them 2 minutes. Now, in the old days, it could have been like a multiple choice question. Give me the answer. You had no idea how long it took for them to come up with that answer. And now, based on the length of the video, you can see the steps that they're taking. Are they being effective? Are they being efficient? Are they going to start stammering in front of a customer because they don't know how to do it quickly?
Oh, that's brilliant. So folks, time drills are the key, right? It's not just being able to use the system, it's using the system quickly and efficiently. And by the way, while you're doing 3 other things, but you use a special software, or you just have them take a video when you're doing it virtually?
Both. I mean, we can do it within a couple of different systems that we have in-house, and it just automatically records their screen. And so, we use that for pitches, give us your elevator pitch, give us your, show me how to send out this particular document.
Sure.
All those kinds of things.
That's really good though. So folks, if you don't know, with Globalization Partners, I mean, it's right there in the name, right? John's got people all over the world and virtually. So the fact that you can now say, if you're not live with everybody, just send a video of is, I mean, even if it's just an open webcam of you doing it, it's brilliant. I love it. So I animated the third one about process because it's exactly what you were saying. Process is about, how does a bill become a law? For the old Schoolhouse Rocks fans out there as old as me, it's how do you get stuff done in our company? And the way I like to prioritize that is, what are the top 5 questions you're going to get from a customer, from a peer? What are the top 5 things I'm going to have to solve, right? And that, like you said, John, is resource training. My favorite thing to do there isn't teaching them how to do it, but giving them a scavenger hunt. Here's your top 5 questions. Go find the answer. Here are the places to do that. And you can turn that, of course, into contests and fun there too. Acumen is my number 4. And by acumen, sometimes it's just straight up business acumen. Sometimes it's industry acumen, right? Or just the foundations in general of the acumen of your product. But the very first training job I had, we were selling computers. And I realized that when we were talking about the speeds and feeds of Compaq, so just having some fun aging myself, people didn't know what a hard drive really did, right? It was the same when we were doing things like SaaS. People talk about cloud all the time, but your job is to go and new hire and make sure that they actually know what the heck that means. So give them the foundations in the product, the business, or the industry acumen. Do you find one of those acumens most important in your role, John?
100%. We had a sales meeting a couple of weeks ago, and the question was posed, how many, so our business is employer of record, or the acronym is EOR. Mm-hmm. You may or may not know what that is. It doesn't make any difference. But when we find when our BDRs create appointments for our salespeople, about 35 to 40% of the people don't even know what an EOR is. In terms of, they know that they have a need and they know what the business case is, but they're literally, first starting to research the possibility of doing what they're doing.
And guess what? Your reps are the same, right? So if you want,
absolutely.
Yeah. So to me, the number 1 goal of onboarding, I wish you could measure this. I wish like there was a gauge. I had like a meat thermometer on confidence, because by the way, that would have changed my entire life as a teenage girl. Different story. Anyway, if you could measure the success of an onboarding program, to me, it's in rep confidence, right? That is your number 1 leading KPI to somebody hitting quota higher and faster and staying longer. And how do you do that? To make sure they're not nervous to have conversations about shit they don't understand. There you go. So here we go. Number 5, of course, is sales skills. I understand you may think that you've bought the experience. I understand that. Even in today's competitive market, where we don't have the luxury of 2 years of history and a college degree and played a competitive sport any longer. You're gonna have to teach how to sell your product and your industry to your customers virtually in your systems and ways. I've had people with 30 years of experience in my training classes, and they are the ones sometimes that said they got the most out of it. You got to teach the sales skills. And of course, then the people. We've got to include the people in our organization, getting to know the customers, right? I love case studies. I love calling customers, getting to know the managers. If you're not involving managers and role plays and lunches and all that sort of stuff, and you're tossing reps over the wall to managers, or managers, if you're getting them thrown at you, we've got a problem. Go get involved in their onboardings. Any final tips on these last two, John?
Yeah, and I'll combine this with, the switch to virtual training is, we have such a variety of people coming in and out of the class all the times. It breaks up the monotony of, being in a bedroom, a living room, a kitchen, by yourself for months at a time. And you're right, you can't just, pick them up, hand them off to the manager. You want them as well-rounded as possible in a short period of time.
Cool. Good. Hey, by the way, here's your extra shot on this one warning. Mixing and synthesizing these 6 topics together into real life selling situations may lead to decreased ramp time, higher employee engagement, and a hell of a lot more fun. Okay. So synthesis is really this extra shot. Don't spend an entire day on product, right? And don't teach product in a vacuum. However, you can combine things. Can you listen to a customer call, getting to know the people, while practicing in a sandbox system? Can you use real customers in an onboarding scenario? It's an onboarding cocktail. Well done to the Green Octopus, Mike Finsel. Can they find process answers in a scavenger hunt using their existing systems? So find ways to build activities, critical, that use pieces and parts of all of these 6 different critical components. All right, and your bonus chaser.
Human nature, Lauren, for people to want to show what they have just learned. They are eager to express that knowledge.
You're so right, and that is the key to adult learning, right? So the Charlie Brown mom, which is what we all wound up doing when we went virtual, right? I got to train this now. Well, let me pull in the guy who built the product and we'll let him teach everybody for 30 minutes on Zoom. And if that's still happening in your organization, you desperately need help. Fix that immediately. Use these tips. All right. Folks, this is just one little extra bonus chaser. We talked about this product training or solution training, whether it's a service or a product. It is sales training. Get rid of the features and the history. If you want to go feature function benefit, great. The sales situations, that's the key. What are the situations the customers might be in? What are those trigger events that I need to ask questions about? All right, we're going to keep going. Look at this. Cut off the talking head. We just talked about this. Fire Charlie Brown's mom. See if you can move telling. Oops, I'm sorry about that. See if you can move telling into an activity. Like that assignment. You said that you've got a syllabus, John, like that you're pretty self-led. Can you tell us just briefly what that looks like, feels like?
Yeah, for us, it's we have 30, 60, 90-day stuff, but the most detailed syllabus is the first 3 weeks in terms of, the recorded videos that they need to watch that are either HR specific or, our department revenue specific. We give them tons of activities and assignments around that most of them get graded by the instructor. Plenty of challenges. We have, weekend Kahoot quizzes and do some interregional competitions and things like that. Nice. So it's a great mix of, both self-led stuff and then the instructor-led portion every day.
And I love the gamification in there too. All right. So if you guys listen to what John just shared as a scale of 1 to 10, John's program, we're going to go ahead and give it a 10, which is unusual for me. All right. It's a 9.5. All right. John's program's a 9. And the folks on my team are laughing at me right now. John's program is a 9. And because it is just, it's independent, right? You're going to rate your onboarding program right now against this scale of self-sufficiency, right? You might be a 5 if your rep gets a daily plan when they're in onboarding. You might be a 1 if there's still somebody in there doing a dog and pony, and there might be a little bit of Charlie Brown stuff right now. So if John's a 9, where are you on the self-led scale with the program in your organization? Will you out yourself in chat by putting in a number? I might have made it too hard to achieve against the John Utter scale on this one.
I'm going to give myself a 6.
You give it a 6. You think there's room to go?
We're always looking at.
Yeah. There's always more ways, right? Even if it just starts with here's your daily instructions, and then you're adding contests and you're adding scavenger hunts and you guys, I asked this. Thank you so much, Karen and Sharon and Mike and Tara, for your honesty and there. That's where it starts, right? And I asked this on purpose because it's one of the hardest things to do. You feel like you're supposed to hold hands through this, and it's tough to bring yourself there. Heather, that's why we're here. You got it, folks. Nice job. I appreciate that. Here's another great tip to keep in mind. This you can send straight up to your sales manager. So if you want to send a clip, start your clip recording at 27 minutes. All right. Sales leaders, reps hired in groups are more successful 100% of the time. In fact, even pairs will work better together unless Rose hogs the door, right? Like there's no reason the 2 of them could not have survived this. We all know this to be true. So what we're looking for is folks to come in together and all kind of move in this same direction together. When you've got a group, you've got a peer group. It's the same work for everybody in your enablement department, whether you hire 1 or you hire 25. So get more out of your enablement department by hiring people in groups. When we don't do that and we leave it up to individual managers to onboard their people, what we get is this instead. And you know what managers spend all their time doing? This. Okay. You cannot have a manager in charge of hiring them, training them, and coaching them. You just can't. It's impossible, especially now that it's virtual. So if you've got more than 20 reps and you don't have a training resource yet, there's your first move. Okay, stop the recording. All right, here we go. Tip number 5, hire professional trainers. John's been talking about the fact that training is not the same as telling, right? I've heard a billion managers say, they just don't do what I tell them to do. That's because we're telling and not training. That frustration is real, folks, but it is, I've done it again. That frustration is real, and it's because it doesn't work, right? When you want to train somebody to actually apply, to change a behavior and apply a new skill, it takes about 5 times longer than just telling them. There's an entire profession around getting people to change behaviors and do things. Professional trainers have been instructed on how to do this, right? In fact, here's a study to support that. Aberdeen did one about 5 years ago. 85% of the sales teams considered best in class are using professional trainers or curriculums, okay? Most of us are outsourcing our sales training to the folks in enablement who work for HR, and those folks are not sellers. So hire professional trainers or curriculum and do that for all your areas, not just sales. All right, customer's voice. I can't wait to hear how you might use customer's voice, John. So I love involving real calls. It's just, that's our secret sauce, man. I love it. You got to listen to the customer's voice in sales calls. Plus you're just hearing what to do, and you can pause along the way. What would you do? What are they thinking? It's the top 2 questions to ask. But I also will use them in testimonials and case studies. A call recording in the pause game we just talked about. Why not let reps call customers and talk to them about why they chose us and get to know and hear that customer voice? How else do you help reps get to know the customers?
I'm telling you just gave me a great idea about having new reps call existing customers. Fantastic idea.
I feel like I've done something today if I've given you an idea.
Definitely made the notebook. We have a library of carefully selected calls that, so when you go back and talk about, the top 5 things, we're always trying to reinforce those things. So, the process, the, top 5 objections, top 5 competitors, and that, because we record all of our calls and we just go back and, we make them required reading, so to speak, or required viewing, so that they can see that in their, and they eat that stuff up because it's the most close to the real world that they get for a little while, and they eat it up.
I couldn't agree more. And then that call to the customer, by the way, is really good when we have call reluctance. So it's a safe and easy call. And it's an interview that they do and why they chose us and what their situation was. And then of course you can record those so that you don't have to, bother your customers all the time. Here's a bonus chaser, folks. We've got to train our managers too. It's really critical. If you're not, and I understand new hires are on fire and that's why everybody starts there. But when we train our managers, it helps make sure that we're creating that development culture. It makes sure that the rep training is sticking. It makes sure that they're going to be coaching what you're training them on, right? By the way, it also reduces the load because a manager who's been trained to really care and feed for their rep is going to keep more reps. And it is just, this is the ask, right? Reps are looking for it. Managers are looking for it. Like, open it up. Let's make sure that we're onboarding and doing ongoing training with our leaders. Sales shot number 7. I can't wait to hear if you do this or not, John. Do you have a nest? That safe place where people go from training to the nesting group?
We are in the process of building more of a formal nest. So we've had like an informal mentoring program, but we are in the process of hiring a nesting manager. And that nesting manager, their sole responsibility will be devoted to the newbies. Mm-hmm. And we'll probably use that as like a manager and training kind of role. So a high performing rep that wants to become a manager, before we make them a sales manager, we'll probably use them as a nesting manager.
I love that path. It's really good. In fact, I had a former client who would, people had to take a turn through training before they got into management at all. Like it was a part of the career path. But when you've got a nesting manager, that is your best coach. All right. This is the person who is the pure developmental rep. They're not pulled into saving big deals from your, high maintenance top reps. They are just all about coaching people and caring and feeding. And it's a beautiful, safe place to land. Everybody's in the same spot. I love the fact that you get closer to your cohort. So you're not all like split up like a litter of puppies at the end of onboarding. And you get to stay with your family for a while. But also this regular feedback loop. Your nesting manager is your training manager's best friend, right? They came out and nobody understood what we meant by a marketing qualified lead. Let's fix that, et cetera, et cetera. All right. John, I'm going to give it to you for final tips while I tell everybody about our next sales shot. So next month, we're doing making negotiation your superpower, great for reps and for leaders. Then we're doing tips for prospecting via phone and video. So we partner with Outreach a little bit about Go. So find this on our website, the recording of email messaging, the written messaging in prospecting. Now we're going to talk about phone and video in that prospecting, and I will have another special guest then as well. Whoops, and I've got one more in here that didn't animate. Sorry about that. Budgeting for sales training. So my folks who are enablement leaders and sales leaders on this call, if you're thinking about, I need to enact about all of these tips, you're gonna need a budget next year. And we're gonna walk you through what industry standard is, what best practice is, and helping you justify that when you're asking for it internally, because we all need that line item now, just like we have for recruiting, just like we have for tools, we need one for developing people. So find all of this at factor8.com/shots. That's hard to say. You can register for the upcoming ones and see our old ones. And as always, we have an offer, right? Your code is MC_200 to get $200 off virtual master classes. So we're showing you our rep one here. We've got one new one open every single quarter. If you are onesie twosie hiring like my friends in chat were, and you need some help with the onboarding, bring them into the Factor 8 Masterclass. This is an open enrollment opportunity. It's pretty rare for us to offer these. We only do it with masterclasses. And of course, we have one for boot camps also for managers. So, all right, I'm going to show everybody your fabulous picture again. Tell us your final tip and takeaway, the number one thing folks can do to onboard.
I would say that the biggest thing is to never underestimate the importance of a really strong onboarding program. It's like, you know, again, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. This is their first experience with the company, and developing a very effective, efficient onboarding program is hard. It requires a lot of hard work. It requires a lot of, you know, collaboration with a lot of other different people. But my strongest advice to you is hard as you can to put that effort into the onboarding, because you will definitely reap the rewards down the road.
John, one of my favorite studies on this showed that a great onboarding program can cut ramp time in half. I experienced that myself in corporate onboarding programs. I did one for IBM and for SAP, and we did literally cut time to quota in half. But I will also tell you that it took me about a year to build each one of those programs. Is that where you're at too?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It takes time, and it's a slog. It is hard work.
It sure is. So John and I are going to do our best to answer questions. We will stay on for just a moment. Anybody else, thank you so much. This is your first shot. Come back and join us. Share with your friends. We're really happy that you were here. And I know that Tara's got a question in here in our chat. John, do you have another meeting starting right now?
No, I'm good for another 14 minutes.
All right, really cool. So am I. We're going to just keep the discussion going. If anybody would like to stay on and do some Q&A, John and I are going to do that with you. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. So bye if you got to run. The recording will be sent out. Amy usually turns that around by the very next day. So hopefully that's helpful, Kimberly. Tara, you had the first question. It was about learning styles. So now that we're going to take another minute, John, thanks for trying to chat that in. Do you want to expand on that a bit?
Yeah, in terms of, I mean, I think there's two different things. I mean, one is you really try to need to appeal towards, you know, the different learning styles. And then I think Tara's asking more succinctly, how do we, you know, identify those styles? A lot of times we'll ask folks right up front, you know, how do you best learn? Are you a video person? Are you a reader? Are you, you know, what does it? And during that informal, you know, day one, how do you best learn? We do our skullduggery then, and then, you know, and then we'll cater a little more towards you know, each of the styles, and then we'll duplicate stuff. So some is more video oriented, some is more, you know, reading oriented, things like that, and we'll give them all of that stuff, and they can self-select what they're, you know, what they're doing best.
100%. I don't think that you can cater to every learning style and every bit that you have to train. I just think it's impossible. There's too much to do. So we try to cover all bases as we go, right? So when we have an e-learning platform called the Sales Bar, and there are things to read, there are things to watch, there are and interactive every single time. And then of course there's the live training that goes with it. And we try to do as much of the actual sharing and the hands-on and the speaking and the doing as possible. And that's like, it's just so hard to get every single person in every single way. So you change it up as much as possible. Karen's got a question here that says, my biggest struggle is visual learning, right? Lots of gaps in systems and communication. Yeah, of course, right? Of course. But one of the things I've seen is that when you're teaching systems, you got to have a sandbox, right? We've got to have an example of it. We've got to have people hands-on. So it was horrifying to me. One of the times, John, I was doing an assessment, and I walked into systems training, and they were just literally like, the guy at the front was walking through a system and nobody else was touching the system.
Yeah.
So
whether a bunch of illegible screenshots up on the
right. You're going to do this and then that and then this and then that. It's like, oh wow, buddy, it's not a race. If you want somebody to learn how to do something in the system and they don't have their hands on the system, then you're doing it wrong. It's literally impossible to learn a system without hands-on in the system. So Karen, maybe that's going to help check that box for you, right? Any key CRMs or other tools should have a sandbox system just for you in training. If you have to, it can be the test system, but I would highly recommend it not, especially if you're a global company like John. I very much remember standing in front of people in Ireland teaching them about the CRM system, and I didn't have my own sandbox. And of course, they rolled code in the middle of the night in the US, which would just blow everything up in the middle of my training class in Dublin. Did you see another question in here yet? I'm scrolling up. Yeah, you're welcome, Kimberly. I met with each new hire for 90 minutes and asked them, walk them through the learning program to give them an idea of how to use it to the best of their ability. Perfect. Make them do it and watch it. Yeah, and the key is do. Good. Any other questions? Go ahead and stick it brand new in the chat. John and I will stay on and do our best to help. Or if there's anything else that you want to dive into, we're going to give that a 30-second countdown. John, this is fun.
Absolutely.
Were you running new hire and onboarding programs prior to Globalization Partners?
Yeah. So I had come from the travel business and worked in a lot of call centers, and unfortunately the pace of onboarding is much more, because the turnover in call centers is significantly higher. And it was all about, I saw developing a robust onboarding to help with retention, so that we didn't have to hire as many people, because we made them more confident earlier, and they weren't walking out the door.
100%. I grew up in call centers as well. Mine were sales call centers more than service call centers, but yeah, you learn it fast, don't you? Go, go, go.
Oh yeah.
Go, go, go. Well, Carrie, you are absolutely welcome. We didn't see anything else come in chat. So John, thank you for sticking around for 6 minutes to help our friends of Factor 8. I learned a lot from you. This was a ton of fun. I really appreciate you joining. And thank you to everybody who's hung out. Thank you so much for joining us. We can't wait to see you on the next one. And really, really good to see my friends and familiar faces and names in chat as well. Thanks for joining. Bye, everybody. Have a great rest of the day.